Before I say anything, I just quickly want to say that the title of this show, this one right here, is pronounced Force-Gridman. Force-Gridman. So that's how I'm going to be pronouncing it for the rest of the video. Don't worry, I got it wrong for the first 3 months too. Also, I'm making this video under the assumption that you have at least watched all 12 episodes of Force-Gridman. So take this as a spoiler warning. If you haven't watched Force-Gridman yet, please click off the video. And come back once you finish the show. This is legitimately one of my new all-time favorite animes, and I would sincerely feel bad if anybody unknowingly got spoiled because of me. Please go watch it, you won't regret it. With that being said, let's get started. When I first heard that Studio Trigger was doing an animated entry of the Gridman franchise, I lost it. When I was younger, I was such a big fan of tokusatsu shows, so naturally, I loved the original Gridman. I didn't go too deep into the franchise past that point, but seeing that Studio Trigger was involved was enough to get me hype. Also, when I saw the director, I was totally taken aback, because the same director who directed Force-Gridman also directed this. Yep, Force-Gridman was directed by Akira Amamiya of Inferno Cop fame, and these two shows are his only 2 directing credits. If this is indicative of his future work, I can't wait to see what he does past this point. Now, all this to say, I was expecting a pretty straightforward action comedy from this show, but what I got was one of the best pieces of deconstructive fiction I've ever seen. Now, before I can get into why this show works as a deconstruction of the tokusatsu genre, I first need to introduce the biggest metaphors used in the show to provide context for my interpretation. The world of Force-Gridman is an artificial reality created by Akane, in which kaijus destroy what is unnecessary and rebuild the city the next day, wiping the memories of the civilians of the world. Now, this is what I believe is the biggest metaphor in Force-Gridman. I personally believe that the kaiju that rebuild the world are a representation of the status quo. Tokusatsu shows like the original Gridman and a lot of its contemporaries tend to have pretty hard-set status quos. Good guy shows up, defeat monster of the week, next week the city totally forgets what happens and gets totally repaired afterwards with no acknowledgement to collateral damage. Now, it's important to note that the only characters that do remember what happens after a kaiju attack are the primary protagonists and antagonists. Much like how in real tokusatsu shows, the only characters that have long-lasting effects on the narrative are the protagonists and antagonists, with barely any thought given to the extras. Whenever a kaiju kills somebody, the memory of that person is wiped from existence. By setting the story in a world that works under these narrative mechanics, Force-Gridman sets out to explore the effects of the status quo and what it does to people. Now, with that in mind, I want to explore this idea of the status quo through what I believe are the 3 most important forces of the narrative's thematic ideas: Gridman, Akane, and Anti. I'm going to start with Gridman since I believe he's an important key to understanding the other 2. Now, let's go over what we know about Gridman. Gridman throughout the series takes the form of Yuta and fights the kaiju in an attempt to keep the kaiju from keeping things perfectly the same. He was sent to the world to save Akane from an infinitely repeating life. Now, with that in mind, I see Gridman as a representation of creative change to a long ongoing franchise, much like Force-Gridman is to the Gridman franchise. I mean, really think about it. A totally unique force designed to keep the world from stagnation by introducing itself into the status quo. These are all ways I'd both describe Gridman the character and Force-Gridman the show. I also believe this is reflected in the final battle, where Gridman transforms into his classic design. He may be new and he may look different, but deep down at his core, he's still Gridman. Also, at the end when Gridman says the receptors are used to connect people, I believe what he's trying to say is that Gridman and tokusatsu at its core are designed to bring people together and make them better. Overall, in the show's meta-narrative, I believe that Gridman, and by extension the rest of the Gridman Alliance, represents a new creative force, whether it be to a genre or a franchise. I also want to bring up how during the final battle, they recontextualized the Fixer Beam into a power to create and change, whereas in the original series it was used to keep the status quo, like how the show Force-Gridman recontextualized the original Gridman. Also, while I'm talking about Utah and Gridman, I've seen two conflicting interpretations of why Gridman chose to reside in Utah, and honestly, I can see it going either way. One interpretation is that Rika is a representation of real-life Akane, since when Akane awakes in the real world, they look quite similar. And Yuta choosing to love Rika is a symbol of him choosing to love the real her over the perfect version that Akane projects. The other interpretation is that Yuta liked Rika instead of Akane, showing that he could already defy Akane's godly will. Now, I think both interpretations are valid and have good evidence, so tell me what you think. Now, with that being said, I want to move on to the opposite side of the spectrum with Akane. Akane in the show is displayed as a destructive force on the world, constantly setting it to repeat through her kaiju. She wants a perfect world in which everybody loves her and all of her friends accept only her positive traits. A world tailor-made for her, and designed to appease her every whim. She also desires her world to be simple and controllable. She even says it herself, that a big world scares her. With this being said, I believe that Akane within the narrative represents the idea of toxic fanbase. It's heavily implied throughout the series' imagery that Akane is a hikikomori, shown through her trashy room and her obsessive amounts of tokusatsu merchandise that decorates her room. I believe she was designed to represent the worst parts of fandoms. The part that wants their favorite show to stay the same. The part that hates it whenever new people are given reins. The part that's afraid of a big world. It's easy as a fan to stay in the mindset that repeating the same thing over and over again is an artistically okay thing to do, when in actuality it destroys the stories you love. That's why she targets Gridman as an enemy, as he, a new force, opposes her status quo. She's afraid of him broadening her horizons. Because it would be easier for her to stay in her status quo, and not be challenged. She only changes when she realizes that she needs to move on and allow herself to live in a bigger world. A world bigger than the boringly perfect fictional one that she resides in. Now, Alexis is a bit harder for me to pin down. I do believe he represents more of an overall fandom, whereas Akane represents more of a singular fan, as Alexis eggs her on to do his bidding. Also, while I'm on the topic of Alexis, I really quickly want to talk about the final battle between him and Gridman. When he says he can't be defeated due to having never-ending life, I believe this is supposed to represent the idea that he believes that a never-ending, safe story that relies on the status quo is better than a limited, risky narrative that destroys expectation. But this is, once again, my loose interpretation of this fight. Do tell me if your opinion differs from mine. Alexis is a character that I have the hardest time fitting into my interpretation, so any help would be appreciated. Now, onto the interpretation I'm sure that most people will disagree with, but allow me to explain. I believe that Anti represents a fan-turned-creator. Now, allow me to explain. If kaiju represent a regressive force, then I believe that Anti is designed to represent an overly aggressive fan. I think this because he was designed to hate Gridman, and as we discussed, Gridman represents a new creative force. In this sense, Anti has the goal of destroying this creative force. Over time, he learns to like aspects of this new force, and gets punished by Alexis for it. He then learns to take aspects of Gridman into himself, allowing himself to become Gridnite. At the end of the show, he meets the child kaiju from episode 7, who is revealed to be the daughter of Annalius. Now, if you didn't know who Annalius was, I don't blame you, because I had to Google it too. Annalius was a kaiju from the original Gridman series who Gridman saved. That's why at the end, she says that her family repays debts. And with this, Anti says that he's a kaiju who repays his debts, and it's revealed that he has one blue eye and one red eye. Now, all the members of the Gridman Alliance have blue eyes, and Akane and Alexis have red eyes. So with this change, I believe that this is supposed to represent that he's taken on traits of both, and he repays his debts to Gridman by being a creative force on the world he left. Much like how fans of Gridman are now people who work in the entertainment industry. He is both kaiju and human, a protector and a fighter, a fan and a creator. At the beginning of this video, I said that Force Gridman was a deconstruction, and hopefully after this whole exploration I just gave you, I hope you can see where I'm going. Gridman, at its core, is an exploration of the relationships between fans and creators, and what it means to be both. What it means to limit yourself as a fan and keep yourself from the world that's within your grasp. What it means to be a creator and how you have to show people that bigger world. It's a story about the bonds created through art, and how art should be free to express itself, and better those who watch it, and allow them to move on from it. How the status quo should be challenged, because if it isn't, you'll sink into a world of mediocrity that'll make you a worse person for it. Because no matter who you are, creator or fan, you don't need a status quo.
Right away, hey. If you press LOGOUT, you get forgotten what's supposed, but a reminder just how boring our lives are. Look at how much fun I'm having, ain't no beauty in the absence of broadcasting till you fall. I seen us select you naked, I seen us exhibit behavior, I see famous people I don't want no autograph, I just wanna follow back, maybe 10 till you fall. Play back, say that. That's just the way that the game go. After the rain, it's a rainbow. I see a product you paid for. Shit get forgotten today. Oh, if I cannot log in, they started a rumor that I got shot like a dead go. I don't walk without my headphones. I don't got cable in my crib. I don't even know how we got here. Be independent is my fear. Government look like the mafia. Censoring out what you watching. Internet turn me into the mid of jail. Solitaire more than a game with your car. Can't change the channel, it'll stay in our heart. Stay in the public and pray to your God. Need validation, I'm too insecure. Character stuff from 140, 280. Your post to your story. I'm from the 290, 2 sides to each story. Yeah, I'll be your friend, but you cannot follow me. If you press LOGOUT, you get forgotten what's supposed, but a reminder just how boring our lives are. Look at how much fun I'm having, ain't no beauty in the absence of broadcasting till you fall. I seen us select you naked, I seen us exhibit behavior, I see famous people I don't want no autograph, I just wanna follow back, maybe 10 till you fall. Everybody insecure, especially people with everything. Why you think they got everything? How would you think they got it? Ooh. Everybody insecure, especially people with everything. Why you think they got everything? How would you think I got everything? Look.
Everything's on camera, everything's on camera. Everybody want handouts, everybody got pamphlets. Everybody wants Santa, everything is on camera. Everybody want pics now, everybody got antlers. Everybody my kid now, everybody got Pampers. Everything is on me now, everybody got cameras. Ain't nobody got chancellor, ain't nobody got answers. All them scratching their head now, ain't nobody got dandruff. Don't nobody like selfies on their own page. I know people with their friend requests as their homepage. Ain't put a picture on their wall since the Stone Age. Feel locked up in their own cage when they on stage.
If you press LOGOUT, you get forgotten what's supposed, but a reminder just how boring our lives are.